There is no compulsion to live in a certain way. There's no compulsion to be happy or be giving or be this or that. Attempting to follow such tenets, such rules, it essentially stiffens the human being and it leads him towards places where the rules, promises are broken. Essentially what happens is that the human being searches within life for things that life cannot give. And even if one were to memorize that truth, it would do nothing for him because it would not be in his own experience. Just because truth is given does not mean it needs to be forced upon oneself. In time, one may come to realize it or he may not. The human being searches within relationship, within people, within friendships, whatever it may be, ways to make himself happy. He searches for various things to fill the hole within himself. And life is not created in order to fill those holes, because those holes are created by a lack of understanding. Life is very different than what a human being believes it to be. I think the essence is to somehow arrive at the realization naturally that any attempt to live according to a certain ideal or concept, or live up to a certain guru's methodology, to be this or be that, or to be happy or to be compassionate or to be joyful, whatever it may be, that is the road to ruin. Because that is not of oneself. That is something that is taken from the outside, put on like a coat, and then being attempted to live up to. These things don't work, and this is the truth that human beings have never understood. And the overwhelming majority of human beings will never understand that, not for centuries, not for eons. It will always be about concepts and ideals and living a certain way and doing a certain thing and being a certain way and changing yourself to become this or that and being less of that, more of this. And that absolutely ties a human being in knots, number one. And even if it didn't tie him in knots, it doesn't work. It's a chase. It is all about realizations. It is all about understanding, and it is all about the natural seriousness to want to understand. And even the desire, and even understanding is not an ideal. There is no such thing like I want to understand that once again, it doesn't matter if the ideal is good or bad, it's still an ideal, it's still a concept. Therefore, it is not about living life in a certain way. It is about seeing the truth behind things. Because if one sees the truth, the more that he sees the truth, the less misconceptions and misunderstandings he has, and the less misconceptions and misunderstandings that he has, the less he will struggle and suffer, because he will be approaching things according to the way things are, not trying to make them a certain way or to make himself or herself a certain way. I will open it up for some questions.
Hey, if we understand that the destination matters more than the journey, and that most human beings waste their life, but then again, death ultimately is death. My question is, what is so bad about wasting a life?
If you don't think it's bad, you don't think it's bad.
And where does this certainty come from?
It's just there.
Hi, Siddha. Can you hear me? Hi, Siddha. My question is, see, when we say that it's a lonely path for us to walk through in this life, how much is this marriage and the people associated with us? What is their role to us in this journey?
Well, that's up to the individual. I mean, it's not. Once again, that will be a concept. If their role is this and your role is this, then you're going to start living up to that, and then you're going to ask them to live up to that role. That really isn't the question.
Are there multiple truths?
There are universal truths, and then every situation itself has a truth.
Hi. Tomorrow, am I the same person as I am today?
It depends what you mean by person.
Is truth objective or subjective?
Objective and subjective are subjective. Those words are too vague.
What is the truth about exposure to truth?
I've spoken about that many times. What don't you understand about it?
I just believe that I've been exposed to truth for a long time now, but I still hear the mind speaking.
Why wouldn't you? Why would exposure to truth make the mind stop?
I don't know.
I mean, for some people it does. For others it doesn't. And it depends upon if what you're hearing is really truth. And if it is really truth, then it according to purity would be done because you don't want to listen to lies. And if it's done in order for an ulterior motive, then it's best to be abandoned right away because that isn't real. That's prescriptive.
Hi, Dr. Gupta. Can prescriptions lead to truth, or do they always lead to more and more prescriptions?
More and more prescriptions, 100% of the time. And even though I have just said that, there is absolutely no reason to believe it. One's own experiences are where to look for verification. Don't just blindly believe what I say. There's no belief.
Thank you.
What is the easiest way to let go of bad habits?
There's no easiest way.
So can prescriptive solutions lead to solutions that, to innovative solutions, or like you talk about, like solutions that one comes up with one's own experience? But I believe like prescriptive solutions can lead to your own experiences that create more, solutions in itself.
Okay, so I heard you say that you believe that. There's no question there. Perfectly fine. You believe that. No problem. You see, it must be understood that when you come into this domain, you have to come with different sensibilities. Nothing about changing yourself. It's like walking into the rain versus walking into the sunshine. You have to know what you're walking into. You cannot bring your old abilities here because they will only lead to confusion for you, and they'll waste my time and yours. I have no interest in wasting my time. In every other place in the world, you can go into and you express your beliefs and say, "Well, I believe this," and then the debate starts. I have no interest in debating with anybody. I have no interest. This might be the only place that you'll ever see in which I have no interest in making you want to believe anything. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me if you believe it, don't believe it. You stay in this room, you don't stay in this room, you never come back. It doesn't interest me. So if you believe something, that's perfectly fine. But it isn't that you're going to say that, "Well, I believe this," and then I'm going to say, well, you shouldn't believe that. You should believe this over here, and that's wrong that you should believe it. And here's the evidence. I'm not going to do that. I don't care. If you have a question, you can ask a question. And if you don't have a question, you don't have to ask the question. And whatever answer I give, you don't have to follow it. There's nothing to follow. In fact, I'm asking you not to follow me. I'm asking you not to listen to me, not to believe what I say, but return you back to yourself. There's no debate here. There's no discussion here. And as I state, there's no debate and discussion. The way that can be misunderstood is to believe that because I just said there's no debate and no discussion, that my word must be taken as gospel for you. And I'm not saying that either. On the one hand, there is no debate and no discussion. And on the other hand, I ask you to believe nothing. I ask you to follow nothing of mine. Nothing. I'm not saying don't believe it. I'm not saying believe it. I'm not saying don't follow it. I'm not saying follow it. I'm not saying anything at all.
Who is the biggest influence on you, or what books are the biggest influence on your life?
Nobody. No books.
Hi, my question is related to learning a new skill or a variation on a skill you already have, and how that, like, what does it have to do with no mind? Because I like when I learn, like I try to learn a new dance, it's actually really hard. But I know at some point it becomes easy. But like I can't, it seems impossible to learn like a new skill in the no mind state, because I just go back to my old habits. And it's...
Who's asking you to go to the no mind state?
I'm sorry, what?
Who asked you to go to the no mind state?
I did. Because
Okay, so then why you... Okay, so if you asked yourself to go to the no mind state, then why are you asking me about something that you made yourself do? What do I have to do with that?
Well, because you seem like when it comes to your perception training, I think I figured it out a little bit. I literally take the backseat and let everything move, and I see what happens, and I pick out what I like, and I pick out what I don't like, and I get rid of it. I trash it. But whenever
but there's no question here. Okay, you can do whatever you want. I don't understand why you're... I don't understand why you're here. There's no question here. You're telling me a bunch of things that you're putting on yourself, and you have found a way to do it. That's great. I just don't understand what my role in this is.
But whenever I try...
Hi, Kapil. I still don't fully understand the nature of desire. It seems to be that there's two... that there's what people say that they desire, and then there's what people do, which seem to be two entirely different things.
There's no people. People don't matter.
I'm sorry.
It's all about you.
There seems to be what I say I desire, and then is if I were watching myself, there's what I actually do. And
well, that right there seems pretty clear.
Yeah. My question is there any utility? If I think about what I want, the only thing that I arrive at is what I think that I want, which doesn't seem to be my actual desire. My question is there any utility to examining and thinking about what draws me, or is the only utility looking at what I actually do and the actuality of things, rather than what pulls me, whether or not I do that thing or not.
I think it would be wise to do those things and see where it takes you, rather than rely upon what I say.
Sure.
Let do the test and see what happens.
Okay.
And then you'll have an answer which does not require belief.
Hey, I'm first time in your space. I haven't read any of your books. I'm just wondering, what is the central idea about this topic, the truth about living?
There was a talk in the beginning. I guess you weren't here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't here.
That's okay. Don't raise your hand unless you have a question.
Hello. My question is on fear and why or what about it that makes it so pervasive and powerful.
How old are you?
I'm 24, and I feel like I'm controlled by fear. Yeah.
It's a very big question. It really is best answered from the standpoint of a particular circumstance that an individual is facing. And in addressing it from the circumstance, then that speaks to the underlying basis of it as a general whole. Every human being is controlled by fear to varying degrees. The simple answer that I can give you is where there is a consequence, there will be fear.
Thank you so much.
Why am I so imitative while I'm looking at other people? Thanks.
No.
Sorry. Maybe the last time it fell through. My question is, I've been kind of going through your work off and on the last couple of years, and I often feel a great sense of despondency when I read the things that you write and listen to the things that you say. And I think that's because they really deeply resonate with me, but a lot of the time it makes me just despondent and kind of empty. And is that this is probably a dumb question, but is that like a bridge that has to be crossed to get somewhere that makes more sense, or is that just where I am right now, or is that not even a fair question? I don't know.
Well, it isn't. It isn't for the happy and the cheerful, and it isn't a beach read. It isn't for the yippee people. It's just not. These are deep, serious things that I write about, and they aren't recommended for. I don't recommend them to anybody, to be honest with you. If someone comes, they come of their own accord because it resonates with them, and they're pulled by it for whatever reason. So if it makes if it makes one feel a certain way, and that way isn't cheerful, I'm not at all surprised, because the happiness and the yippee people, that's just unserious, and not that someone shouldn't be happy. Every human being wants to be happy, but it really is for an individual who is looking for the deep truths of life and craft and mind, and what every human being is suffering, especially the happy ones, and so in looking into the suffering, in looking into and don't listen to what I just said, because then you're going to start watching your suffering. I just don't listen to that. You're going to prescriptionize it. When I say looking into this, I can't even speak without it being prescriptionized. But when one examines suffering, there's not sunshine and joy there. And if there was, then human beings wouldn't be suffering in the first place. So most things in looking at truth are dark. They're in the shadows. They're in the corners and the depths of human beings where the people don't want to look, and not that they should. But the very reason that one doesn't want to look is because it's so dark, and because it's so heavy, and because it has a lot of weight to it. So I'm not at all surprised that one would feel the brunt of that weight. And I'll be the first one to tell you, it isn't good for you. You shouldn't do it. If you're moved to, it's not healthy. And once again, this is another departure of my work from everybody else's. Is I don't recommend anything. I don't think anything should be done that's good for you. I don't care about health. I don't care about goodness. I care about, take your vitamins. I couldn't care less about that. If you are moved to do it, I don't even need to say, if you're moved to do it, do it. Because if you're moved to do it, you'll already do it. No reason to tell you to do it. So therein lies the genesis, and therein lies the reason for why you might feel that way. But somebody else might read the very same things and feel a sense of freedom or liberation. Somebody else might read it and feel as you do. Everyone is different because everyone's coming from a different place.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Hello. My question is, how do I balance?
There's no how to. And there's no balance.
How do I balance?
I guess you didn't hear me. There's no how to. There is no balance. And you don't need to believe that.
So you had a tweet once about saying that if one has reached a PGA Tour, the mind is the one in final battle. Why is it for only the one that reached a PGA Tour? What if the mind was conquered beforehand?
Well, that's not an exclusionary statement. That's just an example.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Kapil. I've been reading your work for about a year and some change. This is only the second time I've asked the question, so if it isn't that clear, I apologize beforehand. So I feel like after reading your work for this amount of time, certain things have happened. I kind of just like certain things I cared about, I don't really care about that much anymore. Certain anxieties and fears I had, they just kind of left on their own. But there's one thing that it kind of bothers me, and I don't. It's not that I don't know how to approach it. It's that it hasn't left. So I'm naturally a quiet person. I'm not really interested in conversation. Most conversation is just people, at least to me, just finding things to say to fill up space and pass time. But my family, I have family members that I don't live with. They live a while away, and I don't talk to them very much. And I feel like there's this bad energy there. Like they kind of feel like I don't like them or that I hate them or something. But it's like I care about them and I have no issue with them. But it seems like I guess they just want to like check up and talk and things like that. And that never enters my mind, like to do that. Like, it's not that I don't like them or hate them. It's just, what's the point of talking and catching up about things? Like nothing's really different. Like my life isn't anything exceptional. And no offense to them, but I'm not really interested in talking about day-to-day things. So I guess to wrap it up, my question is, and I realize that it is what it is. Like, I don't want to do anything about it or change it or anything, but I kind of feel like it's just kind of there. It's always there, like it's kind of this slight like pain. And so I guess I'm kind of just wondering, like, am I doing something? Like, I feel like I'm not really doing anything. I'm not trying to change the situation in any way at all. Or like I feel like maybe I'm being ignorant in a way. Maybe I should talk to them more. I mean, for their benefit. I don't really see anything of it. And I don't feel like if I do call them more that this feeling will kind of go away, because if I try to talk to them more, that'll be a forced effort. And the day that I don't want to talk to them, I won't. And then things will just go right back to where they are now.
I think it depends upon the impetus for why one does what one does. If one is naturally quiet, and that's one thing. If one takes the stance that that I am naturally quiet and therefore I'm going to make sure that I remain this way because I don't like the fact that others want to talk about things that are empty, and therefore I'm going to take this stance.
Right.
The taking of the stance is false. The being naturally quiet is true. And usually problems don't occur when a human being is naturally something. The problems occur when one takes a stance. So if another human being wants to, speak to someone, and it's obviously if it's their family member, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just speaking how things are. Right. And if another human being wants to speak to a family member who's quiet, then there's no maliciousness there. In the same way that the person who is quiet is being quiet, the other person is being what they are, which is more talkative and wanting to know what's going on. So in both parties, there's no malevolence. There's no there's no evil. There's no intent to harm. Therefore, and so wherever that takes one, it does. And it is often the case that if one does not like to speak, there's writing a message explaining how someone feels is also obviously there's more than one way to communicate, verbal, written, whatever it may be. If one feels the desire to help the other individual understand that one is not doing this out of any sort of anger or bad feeling, but then that helps others understand that, okay, well, at least there's no misunderstanding that it's being done out of, anger or bad feeling. And I'm not saying you should write or shouldn't write. I'm simply, these are the things that exist as options for human beings. And these are also what a human being is naturally is the way he is, whether he's talkative or whether he's quiet. And problems occur when one takes stances, and problems occur when also one is allowed to make conclusions that are not true. And if the desire exists within someone that they don't want to perpetuate untrue conclusions, then they may do something about it, or they may not.
If I may ask a small follow-up question.
Actually, there's a lot there, and it would be to diminish your examination of that to ask another question.
Thank you, Kapil.
Hey, Kapil, I want to ask you about there is my friend, and she is, I think she is in depression, and I want to help her, but I don't know how to do so. Can you tell me something that?
No, it doesn't work that way. You can't say something and then someone gets that of depression. That's back to prescriptions.
This is kind of like a fundamental level 1 question. Does the mind need to be transcended first in order for the exposure to truth to be effective? Kind of like you can't get dry. No?
Hi, Kapil. Thanks for doing these. So you said something earlier that I've been trying to wrap my head around. You said something like, if you're moved to do something, you would like already be doing it. And I kind of get where you're going with that. But the question is, if there's a hesitation that arises, like after you feel moved to do something, what does that mean? What are we supposed to take away from that? Like, does that mean that initial feeling you had to do something was like false or insincere? Is it case dependent? Like, what is the hesitation trying to tell us?
There's no. It means there's a hesitation. That's what it means.
Mm-hmm.
This reading into things to see what is it trying to tell us, and what is so and so trying to. These things are intellectual conversations, hocus pocus fantasies that you've learned from self-help books and spirituality. It's just nonsense and jargon. You can read anything into anything. Something is trying to tell you something. Well, you can fantasize anything about anything. Where's the litmus test? Where's the truth about it? It's all just mental fantasies. There's nothing there. This is what the spiritual and self-help world does. Don't raise your hand unless you have a question.
Doing this. So for the past 15 years, I realized lately that even after following you for 4 years and really digging deep into my own mind and what I really am, I realized that I have wasted 15 years of my life, the past 15 years of my life. And it was a painful realization, to say the least. And I felt like all my effort, even, trying to dissect the mind and, the truth behind what this really is. I felt that the effort was quote unquote in vain. And I always slipped back to making bad decisions. And it kind of dawned on me that Michael, the decision maker, absolutely failed. And in that realization, like a space was created where I saw Michael, like me, in a third person, and he actually really.
What's your question?
My question is that he released control, or decided that he doesn't want to make any decisions again, and so the space was created, and there's like I felt like you were talking about this in Atma Moon, where we all have this manufactured self, and it felt like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders on one hand, but on the other hand, like every thought that Michael has is now being vetted by this entity that is aware of Michael, and it feels like I'm either on the quote unquote on the right path, and at the same time that I'm kind of going insane, even though I don't feel like.
I still don't hear a question. I don't hear a question.
I guess I just wanted maybe a confirmation. I don't know if if I'm onto something here, or I'm just like I made a bad turn and I should go back to, I don't know, examine.
Somebody can be intellectually onto something and means nothing. Somebody could be truly onto something and it isn't intellectual. So it just depends if it's intellectual or not, and that really will help to decide whether you're quote onto something or not.
Hi, Kapil. My question is, what should I do?
There's no should do anything. Don't raise your hand unless you have a question.
I have a question. Sorry, I joined a little bit late. As we talk about the truth about living, what truth are we talking about? The truth in the waking state?
What's the difference between mind and ego?
They're in the same domain.
But like how?
The truth about living, I believe, is going to help.
Wait a minute. I'm not interested in what you believe. And I don't need you to be interested in what I believe. There's not discussion. If you have a question, you can ask a question.
Okay. Thank you.
Is desire the ultimate source of truth?
The question makes no sense. What are you trying to ask?
Desire itself, is that where motivation?
Desire for what?
For anything. For motivation, for whatever it could be. Is that ultimate truth for, I guess you could say, achievement?
I mean, desire itself is not truth. But it is true to say that desire is the driver behind achieving anything, even the achievement of truth. Now, truth itself is not an achievement; it's a devotion. But if one does not have the desire for that, then yes, it's a non-starter. But to say is desire truth? I mean, desire itself is a falsehood, but there's a utilitarian aspect to it which is necessary.
Makes.
Yeah, hello. So I've noticed that as I wake up every day, I'm filled with anxiety, and then throughout the day, sometimes this anxiety decreases by becoming engaged in certain things, or sometimes it stays the same, and I enter a different state. But every time I go back to sleep, I wake up not really knowing who I am, and that fear is in my heart, and it's always the same. I was just wondering if you have any sort of truth to that through your own experience.
I mean, it's too large. I mean, that's why questions have to be very specific. That there can't be a broad scope of a question.
Yeah.
And so it has to be a very specific question. I don't think that you have one, even though what you're expressing and feeling is very typically the experience of most human beings.
Thank you.
My question is, there are people out there who've achieved truth, achieved mastery in their domain, say like Michael Jordan or some great sportsman. For these people, what explains them having an off day? If you have mastered something, then does that allow for off days? Is there some alternative explanation?
Well, the environment has a big influence on things, particularly in the setting of team sports, because there's an opponent, and so there's a lot of variables. So even within the individual, how that person feels on a certain day. I mean, these are all very fluctuating things, and there's so many definitional things. I mean, the difference what you mean by mastery. I mean, it's most of the things that people talk about are relative, right? So the relative skills in comparison to other people, and even if someone has more skill than the majority of others, it's still relative. So it depends what one means by mastery, and that word, I use it in a devotional sense. I mean, in a pure, I use everything in a pure sense. That word is thrown around like candy, mastery. It's just like the title of books and self-help jargon garbage. That's not mastery. Mastery is something that is truly, truly rare, and it isn't a relative thing. It's basically non-existent in any sport of any individual living today. It is to diminish the term. It's to suck the quality out of the term, to use it in a modern sense, and plaster it on a book, and even say that so and so has it, because it isn't. These are modern times are a poor example of everything. Modern times are a degradation of what may have once been pure and true. So the word cannot be brought over without being diminished. Anything that's related to modernity is a watered down, diluted form of what something was in its original sense, in its original essence. So I don't even think anybody should use the word mastery, because it's candy. No one should speak about anything in today's environment. No one has the bandwidth for it. Everyone's just bouncing these words around, and because there's no humans to use them on, they still keep the word, even though no one exemplifies it. So it's a wastebasket term, and like all things in the modern age, it has been degraded. There's no mastery going on anywhere today.
Hi, Kapil. You wrote about manufactured self in one of your discourse, I guess. It is liberating, but I got freedom from the reactions to my opinion, so that is liberating. But I'm still taking care of my body, and I'm eating well and exercising, so I haven't got freedom from myself yet.
Okay.
No, I'm asking you. So, because if I'm not taking care of my body and I'm eating well, then I will not be able to experience the world. So, if I get freedom from myself,
yeah, but see, you're looking for a certificate. If you're looking for a gold star, so that you can say that you can hang it on the wall and say, okay, so I got freedom for myself, and there's my certificate of achievement. If there's no achievement, there's no, so I haven't got it yet. That is all determined by what you really want. So if you looked into the matter and you genuinely don't like the fact that you take care of your body or whatever it may be, then that is the thing that means something. Not trying to achieve something to say, well, have I got it yet? Because obviously I'm still attached to X, Y, and Z. And so obviously I don't have it yet. And so if I haven't done that, does that mean that I don't get the certificate?
Okay.
Hey, Kapil, thank you for the opportunity. Just wanted to let you know that Atmamun is extremely powerful. Thank you for it. And also, I would like to know, in one of your conversations which you had with an individual long time back, you referred to a person, I presume a Japanese individual who left his home at the age of 13 into the jungle. He ate berries, and then he mastered the art of martial arts, and then he came out fighting. Due to the poor audio quality of that conversation, I was unable to properly capture the individual's name. If you remember,
His name is Miyamoto Musashi.
Miyamoto Musashi. Can you please, if you don't mind, can you please spell it for me, please?
Musashi, just type in Musashi, is M-U-S-A-S-H-I.
M-U-S-A-S-H-I. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Hello, I hope you can hear me good. I've known you for 4 years. I'm 26, financial free, and currently traveling, and now finally have the time to be exposed to the truth a lot. I still have difficulty to ask the right questions or knowing if I'm truly serious. My sister is depressed, and for a long time she's looking to get rid of it by prescription. So mindfulness, therapist, ayahuasca. She always try to better herself and won't arrive. Is it a serious endeavor if my ultimate desire is to give her as much exposure to the truth? Or am I playing a dangerous game that will cause more turmoil for myself and maybe for her?
You can try it and see. I mean, typically, if anything that is done by force usually ends up in a difficult and conflictive place. But if something is introduced and one is given an opportunity either to come towards it or move away from it, then there's never any harm in exposure. Harm typically happens when there's an argument or a forcing upon someone that they should read this or they should do that. So no, I would never say that there's any harm in offering something and seeing if the individual resonates with it or not, without any strings attached.
Thank you.
Actually, I am new to this group. Can you explain me how the process is going?
Can you briefly touch on the process or journey you went on to get to where you are mentally?
Hey, Dr. Gupta. Thank you so much for letting me speak. Thank you for all your work. You have the best analogies. When you say life is like a game, or to view life as a game, is that like, okay, you get to play this game. Like you said, it's an open playing field. You have no idea when you're going to die.
I don't remember what I said, and I don't remember the context in which I said it, because at the time I said it, it was being said, and so I was in a particular space. But not being in that exact place in the moment of time, I don't know what I was saying. So if you have a specific question from your end, you can ask it.
What's the proper role of joy or happiness in a life devoted to truth?
Happiness is a myth.
You don't think happiness is a choice?
That isn't a question. That's a comment with a question mark forced on the end of it. I'm not asking you to believe anything.
Sorry, could you hear me? Do you think there's purpose in life?
Do you believe there's purpose in life?
Hasn't arrived yet because their thoughts, actions, and everything they've done up until now is useless.
Well, it's all a matter of desire and understanding. If someone has the understanding about the truth, then the arrival tends to happen somewhere along the way. So when you say that someone's thoughts and actions were useless, you're implying that they should have done different thoughts and actions. And it's never in the thoughts and the actions. That's exactly the road to hell, paved by spirituality and self-help.
Good morning. I'm Helsinki, and I'm speaking from Ghana, and I would like to ask a few questions about the truth of living or truth about living.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear a lot, but I have a few questions. You say when a man starts to be dependent on himself and not other people or society, like for instance, you begin to like drive everything from your subconscious mind. All you want is under your control, like under your own personal control. I have tried that before, and I see that, and I have tried that in so many other things before, and I see that nothing is really reliable in this life. Like I feel everything is always a 50% chance, and sometimes what works for you won't work for another individual. I don't know. So maybe you can say yes. You need to
But stop. But hang on. Stop. So you're obviously new here. So let me explain something to you. You are not only implying, but the sentence that you were in the middle of making was that I am recommending something. You have also misunderstood my words, which is natural, especially if someone who doesn't follow my work. That's going to be very natural. It's going to be inevitable that you misunderstand. You think that I am telling you to rely upon yourself. And I'm not telling you to do anything. I am simply saying that if dependency upon the world and dependency upon other people, let me look back at the message and see what I said so that I don't summarize.
Okay.
1 second. All a man's problems arise from hope and dependence upon people and the world. That's all I said. Now, I didn't even ask anyone to resonate with that message. There is no intention on my part. There's not a cell in my body that wants to sell an idea and want you to believe me. I have no recommendations.
Okay.
I'm not trying to help you. Now, the things that you said at the very beginning are all true, and they're especially poignant as they come from you because you have found them from your own experiences.
Yes, that's true.
You did not read them in a book. Therefore, when you began speaking, your words had some weight because what you said was clear and what you said was true and what you said was not didactic, picked some nonsense intellectual book. It was your own. If you still have a question left over,
Yes, sir.
you can ask.
Yes, it was mine. You see, I seen that the space was truth about living, and I am very I don't know, an inquisitive minded person. So I like to learn a lot and I like to know new stuff. So I seen the topic and I wanted to interact, but the space have been very silent. So that is why I looked through your timeline and I picked something I was interested in. I didn't say that I believed in your words, or I didn't say that your words were trying to convince me on to believing in something. I just wanted to pick it as a point of like starting to interact about this whole life thing in general, this whole living thing.
Sure. So do you have a question? Do you have a question?
Yes, I do have another question.
Go ahead.
If you say truth, you mean that something that is true in general, or something that is true for you as a person? Can I get that meaning?
Hang on, let me just clarify that.
Yes.
There are universal truths, and then each situation also has a truth.
So when you say truths about living, I do you think there is a universal truth about living? I know truth can be very, very subjective most of the time. So do you think there is actually a universal truth about living? That's my question.
Number one, there is no subjective truth. There's only subjective opinion and subjective belief. Number two, there are many truths about living. There's not just one. But there's nothing here that I'm trying to make someone believe. But there are many truths about living. Not that anybody should look into them.
You should tell me if you. I know a few truths about living, and I
think it's come to a natural end. You have good sensibilities, and your experiences and your reliance on your own experiences is something that seems and will continue to serve you well.
Hello, I guess I'm audible. So I have been reading your stuff for about an year, Kapil, and this is the third time I'm talking to you. And my question is like, I'm into something like ABC, that's something, and every time like few months passes and I don't reach where my heart wants to reach. So there is a sense of anxiety or like fear um, inside me of not getting there. And whenever my parents or my friends or the person or the people who genuinely love me and say you should do something else rather than doing this thing, and I still continue doing that even if I don't get the result. But when few months passes and still I don't get the result what my heart longs for, that creates a sense of fear of not getting there, or the sense of anxiety. And the reason I want to cure that, or the reason I want to look into that, is because it creates problem like I want to focus more on that particular thing rather than solving my anxiety or anxiety and fear. So I wanted some clarity or understanding about my anxiety if possible.
Every person who's going through a pursuit to get something has fear and anxiety. That's a natural part of everything. Nothing is you snap your fingers and then you have it.
Yeah.
Here throughout the day. How not to fall out.
There's no mechanism. There's no mechanism.
Like how not to.
There's no how. And there's no how not.
Hello, Kapil sir. I want to thank you for everything from the deepest bottom of my heart. I can see that believing something seems to be a hindrance in truly understanding it holistically, because when I believe something, I have gaps in understanding it. But when I viscerally understand something or experience it or see it for myself, I develop a complete understanding. And as a natural consequence of listening to you and seeing the potential of it for myself, I can't help but replicate your ideas, and my understanding seems to be a derivative of what you say. So I guess my question is, does a student ever become their own through listening, or can they have an understanding of their own?
I mean, that should always be the place where someone is trying to go. There's the trouble with spirituality and the traditions and such is this perpetual studenthood. In the end, it really must. The truth is that a human being must become his own master, not have dependency upon anyone, and therefore, it not only. I mean, it really depends upon what the individual is seeking. So it isn't a matter of can, it's a matter of what does an individual want. And I would say that most have been, virtually all, have been brainwashed so deeply into prescriptions that dependency is the default. Dependency is the norm. So, but you're correct. It is all about understanding, and it simply comes down to if an individual desires to become his own master.
Thank you.
May I know how to get out of the comfort zone and
there's no how to.
Why can't I get rid of all of my old tools?
Good night.